Anthony Delmedico is a serial entrepreneur. He has a different mission today, which we'll get into. He just spoke at the White House Conference on the Future of Entrepreneurship. I saw the video of his speech. It's excellent. So this guy is a heavy hitter. Anthony, thanks for joining us today. I know you've been extremely successful, but I also know you are on a mission to do something else, and that is to provide entrepreneurship guidance in schools from 4th grade on. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
I noticed that you mentioned that we all think that math, English, and science is important, but we also all think that so is providing new companies, developing new companies is just as important. And I think your rationale is add this to the list, add entrepreneurship to the list, because it's just as important as the other ones. Am I correct there?
Well, you're absolutely correct. It actually ties all the other classes together and puts a little more motivational factor for students. I've done a lot of research on statistics. 1.2 million teens drop out of high school annually. Most of them think about dropping out and start dropping out in about the 9th grade.
Oh boy, okay.
According to NFPA, 80% of those students drop out because subject matter is not relevant to real life, and 75% of them express interest in starting their own business. Nobody ever showed them how.
Uh-huh.
So if you just look at the dropout rates, and that's why you got to start it earlier. You got to plant those seeds in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and that can be a fun, community lemonade stand or neighborhood car wash, kind of a fun business at that age. But you plant those seeds for motivation for entrepreneurship, and then when they grow older, they relate to that stereotype, so they don't fall into that the self-perception that they can't start a business or that's some kind of strange science to them. They've already had a fun association with it at a younger age. And so then it advances into a more high-speed class. So by the time they're juniors and seniors in high school, their class project is to, form an LLC, start their website, pick a product or service, and they're not graded by their teachers, but possibly graded by the profit their little business creates and local business community leaders and their peers, rather than just being, a test or a book academia experience.
Anthony, I just want to roll back a little bit because I also read where you really started businesses in 10 years old. And
I started my first business at 10.
What was it?
I did lemonade stand in the corners,
Sure.
Sold snacks, anything I could do to make money at the time, because back then we didn't have any.
I can understand. I can kind of empathize with you on that. I just have to tell you a quick story because I was so happy when you were available to be on our show, because you are preaching to the choir. I have a wife who's a 4th grade teacher, and I said, why don't you start a company? Just have the kids start a company. So in the 4th grade, they had to write I guess a little paper on why they should be president. And one of the kids won. And then that kid who was president, and by the way, he's been on the radio show, he basically chose his vice presidents, and maybe they had a little voting. Maybe it was a little bit of a democratic process. But they started a popcorn company. And they bought a popcorn machine, and they sold the popcorn around the school. It was a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I really truly believe that if they could continue in the 5th grade, 6th grade, and so on, that they would be confident in starting their own businesses even before they graduated from high school.
You hit it on the head there. It's a confidence factor. Entrepreneurship and learning entrepreneurship, it's not something you can teach somebody from a book. You have to practice it.
Yes.
You have to have successes and failures. You got to have fun times with it, and it becomes a habit. Being creative, looking around you, opportunity recognition. It's a different way of thinking and acting and behaving than reading a book and taking a test. And so it has to be fun experiences. It has to start when you're young. You have to have a few little failures. Better to have a failure at a lemonade stand in 6th grade than starting a real business 5 years later.
There you go. There you go. I don't think there's any question about that. But what amazes me is these kids in this 4th grade class, they started a little late. And they had all kinds of problems, Anthony. The machine broke down, and they spilled the oil all over the place for the popcorn kernels, and it became very, very frustrating. And so, but they still made $180 in about 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the lessons they learned there, they're always going to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obvious that what you did as a 10-year-old helped you in your later business life, or am I off on that?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I mean, at the time, I didn't really know what the word entrepreneur was. I just liked making money and hanging out with my friends. I mean, when your friends see you making money on the corners and you're doing little things, you kind of become the neighborhood icon. So it was a way for me to be social, also have fun, and also buy, I was raised by a single mother and 3 daughters. My dad wasn't around much, so we were a little short on money back then. So it was a way for me to make extra money. And then later on in high school, it actually got me interested in junior achievement, because I always wondered growing up, I was wondering why they didn't have entrepreneurship classes in high school and even in college. When I went to college, I went to one of the top 25 MBA programs in the country, University of Minnesota Carlson School of Management. And they only offered one entrepreneurship class, at a place where you spend $100,000 to get your MBA degree. I couldn't believe it. Later in life, I always wondered, why don't they have entrepreneurship as a curriculum? And now colleges are just now starting to offer. About 25% of the colleges that around the country are just now, in the last year or two, starting to offer entrepreneurship courses and curriculum. But it needs to be offered and mandated at the K through 12 arena.
I agree, and I think, and I question somewhat the quality of those programs being so early, but at least they're offering it, and I think that's good. Tony, we've got to take a break, but I want to come back after the break and talk about the little green money machine. Anthony, you did not develop and build your many companies. I think there was 3 or 4 that you started without having pretty good customer service.
Yeah, that's correct. And my construction industry, which I spent the last 12 years, which isn't a long time, but we're now in 8 states, licensed in 15. But we do a lot of insurance restoration and catastrophe work after these major floods, fires, tornadoes, and Joplin, Missouri, and the hurricanes hit Florida, and we do a lot of that stuff. So the relationship is actually twofold there. I mean, we got a customer service, obviously the homeowner or property owner who's devastated, but then we also have a customer, which is the insurance company. So it's important to actually keep both of them happy. And
wow! Oh, absolutely.
Double customer.
I see what you mean. There's 2 customers you have to deal with there.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be going to the Midwest with the tornado problems, or are you not there?
Yeah, that hit Indiana. We have an office there, and Tennessee, which got hit pretty bad, and Charlotte, North Carolina had some tornadoes that went through. So we're officed in those 3 states, so we're able to service most of the Midwest tornadoes right now.
Excellent. I know that I do want to talk about your companies, but I also want to talk a little bit. We've got 2 or 3 more minutes in this segment. Now we just want to talk a little bit about the little green money machine.
Yep, that was about 2 years ago. I wrote a book. That's the book I wrote for kids. Age group is about 8 to 14. Really, the primary age group is probably that 4th, 5th, and 6th grade that we're talking about, that petition.
Sure.
To teach them how to start their own business based on some of the experiences that I had as a kid. And, my daughter just turned 6, and so I'm starting to think about what she's learning in school, and I wanted to leave a blueprint for her and, other kids across America, because there's a... I tell you what, you can go into Barnes & Nobles today and ask for a book that teaches kids about how to start their own business, and they'll tell you they don't have any at the information desk. That's a fact.
Well, they're
shame in
other than yours, there isn't any, is there?
Well, you can Google the authors for Kids' Book on Business. You'll find 11 authors in the United States of America, and their books are only sold on the Internet. So there's about 11 or 12 different books. None of them are actually retailed at any of the major book retailers, and none of them are obviously offered in schools. And so we have a gap in early entrepreneurship education, in our country. Yet this country is founded upon by entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial principles. I think we've lost that in the last 50 to 100 years somehow. We got to get it back.
Well, we were doing pretty well getting into the 90s and beyond. There were lots of companies started, but my concern was always that lots of companies failed real quickly, and we've got to change that.
That's a good statistic. They say 9 out of 10 fail in the first 5 years.
Yes.
I mean, my feeling is that failure is okay, because as long as you get up and try it again or try something new. I mean, it's not okay if you look at failure and then you're done, and that's something that has to be taught as part of entrepreneurship. Because failure is part of the learning experience. My biggest thing is when you look at some of these statistics, only 25% of students actually go on to earn a college degree in America. So this other 75% that leave high school, those manufacturing jobs and those jobs that were there for the last 50 years or so are those type of jobs are going overseas. There's a recent McKinsey Global Institute report that's out that says that we need to create 21 million new jobs in this country by 2020. 21 million new jobs in order to return America to full employment, which is roughly 5% versus that 9% it's at now. So the only way we're going to create that massive amount of jobs with all these jobs going overseas is by creating an army of entrepreneurs. And that army is sitting in our K through 12 schools today. And it starts with teaching them how to think like entrepreneurs, so that when they're 18, regardless if they go on to college, because some kids are not cut out for college academia, and quite honestly, a lot of them can't afford it these days.
No, there's no question about that.
Regardless if they go to college, there's a pathway to success for them, and that's entrepreneurship 101.
It's interesting that you call it army. I like that. That's the army. That's
that army's right there. Yeah. That right there. At 18, they can go out and they can be job creators versus job seekers. They don't need to get necessarily a 4-year or an MBA degree like I did to start their own business. They can be taught that at a young age.
I'm with you.
And make it happen.
Anthony, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back in a flash. Welcome back, everybody. This is Kip Marlow, and you're listening to Entrepreneurs Club Radio. Our mission is to bring in real successful entrepreneurs to be able to teach entrepreneurship through interviews with those successful entrepreneurs. And we also bring in specialists on a variety of topics like graphic arts, like branding, like finance, like marketing, search engine optimization, and much more. And speaking of an expert, we have Ken Visacchio-Grady on the line. Ken, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Kip. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Ken is a professor of graphic arts at Kent State University, and he and I have had many conversations about branding and how important it is today. Are we crazy, Ken? Is it really that important?
Well, I think that branding is exceedingly important, especially for startup organizations, because I think that, and when I talk about brand, I kind of think about all of these things under one big umbrella, and that's design.
Sure.
And, I think that as a startup organization, you need to be able to differentiate yourself and be able to identify yourself in a crowded marketplace. And that, to me, is a design problem.
Gotcha. Or a challenge. Let's call it a challenge.
Challenge.
There you go.
Design challenge.
But I think you're so right. There's a plethora of competitors. Especially if you had somewhat of a commodity type product, you've got to separate yourself and differentiate yourself, and that's one way to do it.
Yeah, and I've been reading a lot of articles about the crossroads of design and entrepreneurialism recently, and I was reading some today in preparation for my talk today on your show. And there was a great blog post on Fast Company's design blog a couple weeks ago about taking design and not really looking at it as something that's a skin or that gets added on to your company already, but something that is integrated into your company's DNA.
Gotcha.
So that you're really thinking about things in a design thinking and innovative way, and that designers should be seen as partners in this process, not just as vendors, which I think leads to better solutions.
And the first thing people who are listening to the show today, first thing they say, oh my golly, how much is this going to cost me? And it's just and it's not that expensive to do. It's just that you have to know where you're going with it and understand that it's a typical marketing expenditure. It's a capital expenditure almost.
It really is, and and I think that with this idea of designer as partner.
Yes.
A friend of mine runs an organization in Chicago, and one of the things that they do is they do a lot of work for restaurateurs that are launching new restaurants and things of that nature. And what they've started doing is they've started becoming partners in these business ventures themselves. And so as they work with these restaurateurs, they say, you know what, we want to become a partner. You're not going to have to necessarily pay us for the work right now, but we want to be a partner in this business going forward because we believe in the experience of it, and we know that what we can do in terms of helping you design that experience and design the look and feel of the restaurant is so important and valuable to the way that you do business that we want to be a part of this.
So branding is just not a logo.
No, it is not a logo. It's an experience. It's everything. It's every way that your company interacts with the end user should support that brand position. It's not just a skin that gets added on to your organization. It's something that's at the root level.
Oh, wow. This is incredible. I'm sorry, Ken. We're out of time, and I've got to get back to Anthony, but this is really fascinating. We've got to take this one to the next level because this should be a whole segment. This is so important.
Kip, I would love to be on the show again.
Good. Let's do it. Thank you so much, Ken Visacki O'Grady, professor of graphic arts at Kent State University and author, by the way, of 12 books on graphic arts. We'll see you again. Okay.
Give me 3.
Okay. All right. See ya.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Anthony, I had no idea that branding encompassed so many things. You've had 3 companies. Do you brand every one of them like he was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time on our logo development, and he's right about brand identity and brand equity and, awareness of what your brand means to people. I mean, it's important for people, if you want them to think your company in a positive light and come back and be a repeat customer, all that stuff's absolutely important.
Well, I have interviewed other people who own companies that are restoration type companies. Fire, earthquake. One of the guys that was on several months ago went to New Orleans to help clean up after Katrina. So and by the way, I had a house that had $200,000 of the water damage that we had a restoration company come in. They did a wonderful job. And you're right. They had to work with me, and they had to work with the insurance company. It was probably a very delicate, very delicate balance. I want to get into your entrepreneurial experiences a little bit later, Anthony, but I want to continue to talk about the Little Green Money Machine, and I want to talk about that army of potential entrepreneurs. That is a great term as far as I'm concerned. So,
the Little Green Money Machine started as a book.
Yes.
And once you find that age group, again, I said this earlier, you can't teach kids entrepreneurship by a book alone. It's not just an academic experience. It's a play or a doing experience. And that's what motivated me to invent that business stand. It's a mobile business stand.
Sure.
Which is part of the book. You pick a template from the book as a kid, and you launch it through the stand. And we did focus group studies with kids, 10, 11, 12 years old. What would make them motivated to want to start their own business? Little things like, well, they wanted a lockable money drawer on top. They wanted a built-in solar-powered calculator.
Oh, my goodness.
The banners, they wanted to create their own banners so they can actually go online and create their own banners. They wanted to name their own company and feel that ownership, Susie's Lemonade Stand. So they actually designed the stand, and because they're designing it, they feel ownership, just like us entrepreneurs do.
Sure.
And we get motivated about our logos and our name, and we want to put our name on stuff, and it becomes an ego thing. And they become motivated about it. And so all those little things, as a result of a focus group, resulted in this Little Green Money Machine system, which includes the mobile business stand and then the book. And our motto for that age group is if you can play business, you can learn business. Because, again, it's a doing experience. It's not an academic experience. Anthony,
it's so interesting. And I think also a lot of adults, and yes, some teachers think that these kids don't have the depth of what's the term I want, knowledge or the depth of interest to start a business in the 4th grade, for example. But kids always surprise me. They really get into it. It's amazing to me.
Well, exactly. When we first launched this, we did a focus group study. We had all the parents and teachers in one room with a moderator.
Yes.
We had a bunch of kids in the other room, about 20 kids, and then their parents and teachers in the other room.
Yeah.
Most of the parents, teachers didn't think a 10-year-old was capable of doing this vision statement or goal-setting workshop as part of the book. And they were shocked 2 hours later when all these kids came in with their goal statements and read them out loud. Because in the book, we teach them to say their goals out loud to themselves, read it out loud in the morning and night, kind of like Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Just straight out of Napoleon Hill, but for 10-year-olds.
I'll be darned. I know that you talked about it at the White House. And as part of that, the future of entrepreneurship, I guess a symposium, or I can't remember what it was called, but how, if you do this, if we can get this done, how do you do it? Is there a book for every grade? Would that one book, The Little Green Money Machine, be good for every grade up to maybe 10th grade?
No, that book and that system would be good for that primary education market, which is 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Once you get into the secondary education market, you need a more advanced book and more advanced type of businesses. These businesses I designed are designed for 10, 11, 12-year-olds. They're fun neighborhood community businesses, selling flowers, arts and crafts. personal memorabilia store, through stuff they can run through the stand, a yard sale, lemonade stand, snack shop, that kind of stuff. Once you get into the older markets, as kids advance through this curriculum, you're going to want more practical small businesses. A lot of them would be web-based, internet-based businesses, because that's a hot growing trend now. Creating your own shop page. These are things juniors, sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school could absolutely do, and probably come up with some brilliant, internet-based businesses that may even revolutionize the world.
Well, not may. I'm sure they would. I mean, there's a lot of revolutionary stuff going on out there, and you leave it to a kid to come up with something, and they will. Anthony, I'll be right back. I've got to take a quick break, and we're going to talk about your entrepreneurial experiences. We're back with Anthony Delmedico. Anthony is a serial entrepreneur, and his mission now is to get entrepreneurship courses or business courses into the schools that are just as important, as he claims they're just as important, and I agree with him 100%, as any other course such as math, science, and certainly English. It's vital to the future of our economy, and Anthony really truly believes that we have an army of potential entrepreneurs out there that we could tap if only we taught them to do it. Anthony, I agree with you 100% on that, but I do have to ask you this. Okay, you're a kid, grew up without a father. You had 3 sisters, and your mom raised all of you. You started a little business at 10 years old. Most people would say that's an excuse. I can't do anything. I didn't have, my father wasn't there. My mother, we had no money. What do you say to that?
Well, I think if you study some of the most famous self-made entrepreneurs, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all these guys that have made the Forbes list,
yes,
ones that did not inherit wealth, that's a different breed.
Yes.
I'm talking about the ones that did not inherit wealth, they created it from scratch. They all had a similar hardship as kids. And if you look at their backgrounds, Steve Jobs was an orphan, for example.
Yes.
They all had these experiences where they either had to work young, as a young kid they had to work, or they explored some kind of entrepreneurial activities or were exposed to it some kind of way. I studied these people, and it's interesting that it's sometimes the adversity and hardships or obstacles or competitive factors you face, when you're a kid that makes you a better entrepreneur later on, because that's what entrepreneurship's all about, is facing adversity and risk, overcoming it, and, jumping through the window, so to say, at opportunity.
Why did you start your companies? It was just automatic you were going to do this, or were you with a corporation? I was with a corporation. I got fired. That's why I started a company.
I think it's been in me ever since I was a kid. Like, I had those early childhood experiences. While I was in high school, I joined Junior Achievement. Because of those early childhood experiences, I was interested in entrepreneurship. Schools didn't teach us, so I joined entrepreneurship. I used to make Christmas balls when I was a junior in high school. We'd bag them up and sell them, and I became, president of Junior Achievement.
I'll be darned.
I joined the military at 18.
I saw that.
I still had the entrepreneurship bug, in me. So when I was overseas in Germany, for example, I started a security service in the nightclubs outside the base, and I had guys that would go work in the little bars and stuff like that. And then there's entrepreneurial things I did. I was one of the first soldiers to get a car over there. So on the weekends, I used my car as a taxi service. I mean, these weren't real businesses. You
even did that when you were in the service.
Absolutely, yeah. On the weekends, I was trying to maximize what kind of money I could make. In the military, you only make about $800 a month as a soldier. Sure,
yeah.
So they give you free food and free place to stay, but it's not much to live on. So I was trying to make money on the side over there. As long as it doesn't interfere with your soldiering, they really don't care what you do on the weekends.
Well, okay.
But then when I got out of the service, I joined I got the Army College Fund. I went to the University of Minnesota. I got my MBA degree. Unfortunately, the Army College Fund money ran out by the time I got to my MBA degree. Back then, it had a time limit.
Yes.
And so in order to pursue my MBA degree, I had to literally start a business, because I was accepted to the Advanced Placement Program, which is like a 1-year intense, you cannot have a job type of situation.
Sure.
You're doing like 24 credits a quarter. And so I literally started the business. So I started a valet company, and I did it because I had to. It was a weekend business. I had guys that, they park cars on the weekends, any Friday or Saturday night. I had like 20 or 30 guys working at some bars. Some of like the, International Market Square, which is a huge reception facility for marriages and stuff. They were one of my clients. And this was a great business while I finished my MBA degree. And it's funny, I learned more about entrepreneurship and starting, running a business running that ballet company than I did from that $100,000 MBA degree.
I believe it. Yes, I believe it.
And it kept me in school.
It kept you in school. Yes.
You know, without those early entrepreneurship experiences, I would probably have dropped out of school and ended up getting a job as an graduate. And instead, because I had those early entrepreneurship experiences, I was able to look around and see that there was an opportunity for a valet company started, and it actually kept me in school to get that MBA degree. So interesting again how it builds as experiences throughout your life, and I think those businesses, elevate. And then I did take a job in corporate America, right after that MBA degree for 3 years. I worked at Ecolab, $2.5 billion chemical company as a marketing manager, but I just wasn't cut out for corporate America. I could never get that bug out. Because for years I had played around with these businesses, and so even while I was at Ecolab, I was thinking about starting my own business. I did 3 years there, and then eventually after having a bad experience with a contractor back in 1998, I started the construction business in the basement of my house, in Minnetonka, Minnesota.
My goodness.
And that business grew the following year from 0 to 25 million in sales. And now here I am, 10 years later, now we have offices in 8 states, and
that is
now I'm talking to you guys, writing a book for kids to teach them how to start their own business. So again, it was all about a bunch of elevated experiences that started when I was 10 years old, and that's why I'm so passionate about, it has to start at that younger age group, because it was because of that pushed me into the world of entrepreneurship.
So the real secret to your success was you started early in life, and you understood what it was to make a buck. I
started early in life. Yes, absolutely. But it's not because I understood what entrepreneurship was. I did it because I was having fun, and I literally needed to make money. And later on, I became fascinated by it because it was interesting to be able to go offer a product or service to someone and then realize a profit. I didn't realize what I was doing then, but I was still interested in it.
Sure.
And then when I realized that, at 17, that there was a whole world of entrepreneurs, and that was a business for it. I learned this through junior achievement. I started wondering then, I'm like, geez, well, why didn't they teach me this in school?
There you go.
How farther along could I have been at 18? Maybe I would not have, had to join the military or, to get the Army college fund to go to college. You start thinking about all these things. Well, would my life been different? So that's why now I'm thinking, geez, if we can just get kids around us exposed at a young age, how much more impact could we have on, several millions of kids graduating from high school? How many more Bill Gates, Steve Jobs could we produce?
Anthony, we're out of time. I really appreciate you being on the show today, calling in from California. Good luck to you. I'm going to follow you on Facebook, so let's see what happens.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.